Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Skokie Village Board for Tuesday, September the 6th, 2022. It's my pleasure to introduce our village clerk, Pramod Shah, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The meeting will come to order, and the clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Sutker.
Here.
Trustee Robinson.
Here.
Trustee Kuhn.
Here.
Trustee Johnson.
Here.
Trustee Pure-Slovin.
Here.
Trustee Klein.
Here.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Here, we have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda for this evening's meeting. Is there a motion? Trustee Sutker, seconded by Trustee Klein. Is there anything on the agenda anybody would like to have removed? Trustee Johnson.
I'd like to have 8A removed.
I beg your pardon?
8A.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker.
Aye.
Trustee Robinson.
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn.
Aye.
Trustee Johnson.
Aye.
Trustee Pure-Slovin.
Aye.
Trustee Klein.
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. On your agenda this evening is a resolution calling upon the federal and state units of government, the Illinois General Assembly and the U.S. Congress, to take action on assault weapons and large capacity magazine guns. We're all well aware of the crisis in the country, I think. The village of Skokie, along with Highland Park and a couple of years later, Deerfield, were the only municipalities to have passed an assault weapon ordinance. This was done a few years ago. The Illinois General Assembly has prohibited municipalities from taking up these ordinances. And so at the moment, there are only 10 or 11 of us in the state. What we need are other municipalities to have the opportunity to voice themselves on this important question. So we asked the Illinois General Assembly to take up AR-15 military-style weapons with large capacity magazines. We also asked the Illinois General Assembly to lift the ban on municipalities who would like to pass ordinances such as Highland Park, Skokies, and Deerfield. The ordinance goes through a series of whereases, and then we detail specifically the actions that we are asking our state and federal government to initiate. The ban on the manufacture, purchase, sale, possession, and use of all semi-automatic weapons, high-capacity ammunition cartridges and magazines. Enact legislation requiring and strengthening. Can you hear me now? The light's on.
Testing 1, 2, testing. The whole system's down.
Oh,
Testing.
okay. You cannot hear me, or can?
Testing.
You can, okay. Hopefully, the system will come back on. I'm doing the best I can. Enact legislation requiring and strengthening universal background checks, waiting periods, age requirements, and eliminating exceptions to these requirements. Red flag laws. Strict liability and increased penalties for straw purchasers. Mandating the safe storage of firearms as a condition for ownership. Enact legislation mandating the completion of adequate gun safety training as a condition for selling, purchasing firearms. I ask for a motion. I'm sorry. Trustee Kuhn and Trustee Keith Robinson, along with, I think, probably every member of the village board. You'll have to excuse me. This is a resolution that is very close to my heart. I sat here the evening that we passed the assault weapon ordinance, and there was barely a this entire room was overflowing to capacity in opposition. There was barely a single person who was here who was in favor of the ordinance. And I was never so proud of my colleagues. The village board passed that ordinance unanimously. And this evening, I call upon the board to pass this resolution. Please call the roll.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein, Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. Next item on the agenda is 2 appointments to the Beautification and Improvement Commission. Mitch Sandler as vice chair and Bob Quain as chair. Bob, I see, is Mitch here? I didn't see Mitch. Okay. A motion to confirm these appointments would be in order. Trustee Klein, seconded by Trustee Sucker. Trustee Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. So the reason I asked, can y'all hear me? Okay, I'll speak up. The reason I asked that these appointments be taken off our consent agenda is because I would like to politely ask the board to consider tabling these appointments until our next meeting and to consider the possibility of new nominations for the Beautification Commission. This is one of the commissions I serve as trustee liaison, and I'll kind of give my reasons. First and foremost, this is really my main point. With this commission, and really all of our boards and commission, I would much prefer that we appoint and promote leadership from within our commissions. I feel a little strange doing this tonight. I have a lot of respect for Bob Quain, someone who I think we all know has a very palpable love of all things Skokie. But I've been wondering, but at the moment he's not currently a member of the Beautification Commission, and from my understanding has not applied to join it. And so I would like to raise the issue of possibly, instead of bringing in someone from the outside to serve as the chair, even somebody with Bob's background, which is great, personally, I would much prefer to see the village board promote from within the Beautification Commission. There's some really great new members with a lot of great ideas and great passion. And I remove this also to make kind of a larger point about our boards and commissions. Before we appoint, I know this is kind of a sensitive point I'm about to make, but before we appoint 2 more men to leadership positions on this commission, I want to point out that there's a big lack of gender parity in our commission leadership. If you look at all of the chairs and all of the vice chairs across our entire system, 75% are men and only 25% are women. It's a 3-to-1 ratio. So we've been appointing kind of 3 times as many men to commission leadership positions as women. And that number is even higher, not on the Beautification Commission, but on the commissions that have actual decision-making authority by village code, like our Plan Commission, our Zoning Board, our Appearance Commission, our Board of Fire and Police, where the leadership is currently 100% men. And so I kind of, part of why I took this off is to kind of make this point. And I think I want to see our commissions be truly as inclusive as possible. So, but my main point is I'd like to raise the possibility of promoting leadership from within the Beautification Commission instead of bringing in someone from the outside, if that's something the board would wish to consider.
Well, as I think as the trustee is aware, My intention is at some point to promote within the commission somebody to be vice chair at a certain point, perhaps later this year, as a matter of fact. I'm not going to get into private conversations, but that person would in fact probably be a woman. You are correct. We have some, what I think are very talented people. We've just appointed them. Bob Quain is uniquely qualified. In almost all other instances, I have proposed to the board from within the commission when we promote to vice chair or the chair. In the case of Bob Quain, he's uniquely qualified. He knows how to run a meeting. He and I had an extensive conversation on the subject of beautification. He has the passion for it. He has some very good ideas. And I interviewed all of the new members of the Beautification Commission, and Bob's ideas and his point of view comports perfectly with the new members. I think it's important to have somebody as chair who has an acquaintance with the village of Skokie. I needn't go into it extensively because I think most of you know Bob Quain. Bob's been a co-chair of the July 4th committee. He's a longtime resident of the village and member of the Plan Commission. He has distinguished himself, and I think Bob will make a very good chair. In fact, when I say he's uniquely qualified, he is, to my best recollection, the only chair I have recommended since becoming mayor who was not from within a commission. And Bob and I talked about it, and he was very interested in it. He attended a meeting or two of the commission. And so I think many of you know Bob very well. Bob will make a great chairman, and I think he's deserving of our vote this evening. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn, Trustee Johnson,
I'm voting aye. And I did raise those concerns, but Bob, I'm very happy to work with you, and I know you're going to do a great job. So I vote aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein, Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. Congratulations, Bob. Look forward to working with you. Next item on the agenda is our village manager, John Lockerbie.
Thank you, Mayor Van Dusen and Village Board. Good evening, everyone. Item A is regarding Oakton Terrace and Lamont Avenue roadway improvement engineering services. In conjunction with constructing the parking garage located at the site of the new Skokie Homewood Suites by Hilton Hotel project, the village has committed to making the necessary roadway improvements to Oakton Terrace and Lamont Avenue. The current alley is being fully improved into a roadway that will serve the technology park, hotel, and future parking garage. Provisions will also be made for the future extension of Lamont Avenue going north from Oakton Street and connecting to the Oakton Terrace and the Illinois Science and Technology Park. The owner of the tech park will reimburse the village for all costs incurred to construct Oakton Terrace at the time building permits are issued to begin Phase 2 of the garage construction. Staff has recommended that the village utilize the services of Gewalt Hamilton Associates Incorporated to provide construction observation and other related services. They are on the village's short list of qualified consulting engineers, which was formulated following a formal qualifications-based selection process. Gewalt designed the original plans for Oakton Terrace and is best positioned to make the desired plan revisions relating to the connectivity of Oakton Terrace to the properties to the south. I concur with staff's recommendation and respectfully request mayor and board approval of the resolution authorizing a special services agreement in an amount not to exceed $103,450 to be awarded to Gewalt Hamilton Associates Incorporated.
A motion on the manager's recommendation to enter into an agreement with Gewalt Hamilton Associates is in order. Trustee Johnson, seconded by Pure Slovan. Are there any comments or questions? If not, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein, Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes.
Item B was approved as part of tonight's consent agenda. Item C is regarding a request for executive session pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph C5 and C6 of the State of Illinois Open Meetings Act. A closed session is requested and to adjourn therefrom.
Can we do the managers and your executive session in one motion? Or should we do two separate?
We should do it separate, only
Separately, okay.
because the subject matter is separate, and someone
Okay.
might have an objection to one rather than the other.
Okay.
Not that I would expect that.
I may vote no. A request on executive session as requested by the manager is in order. Trustee Johnson, Trustee Klein, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. Just a question just occurred to me. Under the rules of order, a request for executive session is not debatable,
Correct.
correct? Okay. Just wasn't sure when
Yeah.
you said somebody might raise
Oh,
an objection.
That completes my report this evening.
Next is a report of our corporation counsel, Michael Lord.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, trustees and everyone who's here. Item A is an ordinance on the agenda for first reading tonight. This ordinance will approve a plat of dedication for the property located at 8047 Floral Avenue, which is in a CX core mixed-use district. The property is to be dedicated is approximately 610 square feet and is adjacent to Brown Street and continues along the alley adjacent to 8047 Flora Avenue. It's being dedicated to Skokie without compensation to improve the accessibility to the site, which is being redeveloped for a commercial mixed-use development. There was a memo from our Community Development Director, Pete Pyer, in your packets, and staff is here if there are any questions. This will, unless there are any questions, this will return on September 19th for second reading. The next item on my report is a request for an executive session. We request an executive session in accordance with paragraph 2C11 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act, in this case pertaining to the review and discussion of pending litigation.
A motion on the executive session is in order. Trustee Sucker, seconded by Trustee Pure Slovan. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Robinson,
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Pure Slovin,
Aye.
Trustee Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes my report for this evening.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Yes.
Oh, may I say something under new business?
Okay.
At our last meeting under new business, I asked that the board sometime in September take on the delayed decision of whether or not to consider ending the village's second weekly garbage pickup, and even by the end of this fiscal year, next May. And so I just wanted to confirm with the village manager that a few items will be on the agenda at our next meeting on September 19th. And so, John, am I correct that, will we be hearing from the public works staff and from members of SEAC at our next meeting?
That's the plan.
Awesome, thank you. And I wanted to just ask, I know you sent this to us a few months ago, but I wanted to ask if you could just resend to the board the Public Works PowerPoint from last fall on garbage and recycling, as well as SEAC's report from February about their waste management recommendations. If that's possible. Thank you, appreciate it. I'm looking forward to that discussion on the 19th. Just so everyone's aware, after the presentations on the 19th, I'm gonna make a motion for the board to consider directing staff to prepare these ordinances, to consider ending the second weekly pickup. For it to come to a vote, the motion would need a second. For it to pass, it would need support from at least 3 other trustees. And so in the next 2 weeks, I would like to just ask everyone to both consider seconding this motion and consider voting for it. Yeah, and if anytime in the next few weeks, any of you would want to discuss it, I'm free. That's all for me. Thank you.
Trustee Klein.
In the last few weeks, I've had meetings with several people regarding our 5-year sustainability plan for the village. I, along with some of my fellow trustees, feel that in order to make an informed decision regarding the keeping or canceling of the second garbage pickup, we need to wait for the results of the reports now being prepared. Once we have the necessary data to drive our next steps, I will feel better equipped to discuss and to speak on this matter. From the many residents I have spoken with, there are people on both sides of this issue. Believe me, we all want what's best for the environment. So at this time, if it's proper, Mayor, I hereby make a motion to curb discussion on the second garbage pickup until the reports are completed and received.
And John, is there any kind of timeline on when the board, when SEAC will be writing its report and when the board likely will receive it?
Yes, we are fine-tuning that timeline, but November, the process has the final sustainability plan being completed in November for the board's consideration. And so by the middle of November, the plan should be complete in time for the board to consider it the second half of November.
Okay, so SEAC will take up and write its report in October, at its meeting in October.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they will present to the board their recommendations in November.
Right. The report has a number of steps between now and then, and so the intent is, for example, to have a public listening session on a draft of the report. And so it's anticipated that that public listening session is going to have a lot of input into the report. And so the intent is for all of that feedback to be incorporated into the draft, for SEAC to then consider it, and then for it to be finalized to be presented to the board. And so I'm anticipating that final version of the report will be available the middle of November. And then it may be in the best interest to have a special meeting of the village board to hear the report. And then the second meeting in November to have a discussion by the board. And so
And a
we're
vote.
and a vote.
Or
And s-
votes, V-O-T.
and
yes.
votes, right. And so we're working with the consultant to finalize that process.
Can everybody hear? I'm getting a little, okay. The green light is still on, but I'm not.
It's the
Usually
system.
there's a little bit of you get a little bit of feedback from the microphone.
The microphone system is back up and running. Evidently, there was a hiccup in the system, and it had to be turned off and then turned back on, and so it's
Okay.
back up and working.
Okay, thank you.
Did that answer your questions about the timeline?
Yes.
Okay.
I also have a question for clarification, John.
Mhm.
As far as the report that's going to be coming on, the discussions, in part of that discussion, I assume we'll also be incorporating understanding feasibility of implementing the garbage reduction to once a week, as well as alternative services that may be provided as well. Is that correct?
Yes, and so there has been interest from SEAC in having organic being picked up, and so that is an issue that the staff is looking at some alternatives to, and so there will be information on alternatives as well.
And that's likely to be one of the recommendations.
Yeah, SEAC has made that one of their recommendations to have an organics or food waste service to be
Which would
offered.
be an alternative to the second pickup.
Correct, it could be.
I think there's a concern about the timeline, though, as far as whether we may have that discussion September or November, whether it has any impact in terms of the actual operations side of it, when we're looking to bring in additional services or when we're looking to actually cut services. And I think that has an impact.
Reduce.
To reduce.
Reduce
Yes.
services.
And so, well, to reduce one and potentially add another. And so I think what I'm curious to see and understand is also the operational timeline and whether staff is prepared to provide that as well.
That'll be part of the information that's presented in November. If X choice is made, what the timeline would look like, and so we'll be sure to provide that for the discussion.
Okay. And so for that reason, I would concur with Trustee Klein that I would like to make sure that the trustees have all the information at their disposal to make that decision.
So is that a second to?
That would be a second, yes.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Sumner.
At the budget hearing, when I made the motion that we look at this, one of the things I wanted to make sure that we looked at was if we did reduce garbage pickup, that residents had an alternative and that they understood the alternatives and that they were educated. And that was part of like the big picture that I was hoping for. So I too would like to wait to see the whole, to look at the whole plan.
I cannot wait to hear the recommendation of SEAC. Seriously, I know we've been talking about this for months and months. Super excited to hear what the recommendations are, also what's doable, what challenges, and as Trustee Kuhn said, what the impact is. So to have all the information, I think would help me making it more informed decision in the end after the full discussion, the educational tour, and just really, really understanding staff's impact as well.
Yeah, what I would like to see us do is to have one meeting, maybe a special meeting advertised, et cetera, where SEAC would have the evening to present its plan to the village. And obviously, there would be Q&A. And then at the subsequent board meeting, it would be on John's agenda. And for the most part, I'm trying to figure out how to put this, but clear the agenda so it virtually would be a single issue meeting. And the board can then make a motion to adopt the SEAC plan. And then I would start with go around to each trustee and ask if anybody has comments or wishes to propose any amendments or any additions, which would be in the form of an amendment. And then we would take a vote on the plan. But we would take it all up over a period of 2 meetings so that we will get a big bang for our buck, if you will, because I think you're all very, very tired of hearing me say this, but I'm going to say it one last time. We get one chance to educate the public. Yeah, people are very busy, and outside of a group that has a very special interest in the details of the plan, we're going to get one chance to capture the support and the imagination of the members of our village. And I think we all want this to be a report that is going to get maximum publicity throughout the village, because this is going to affect every single household and every single business in the village. And I think SEAC is doing a marvelous job, and I can't wait for us to get the report myself. So, Trustee Pierce-Slovan.
I would like to echo, I don't know if you can hear me, I'd like to echo the comments from the trustees about waiting for the SEAC report. I feel that otherwise we are voting in a tunnel about one issue of which I don't know enough about to make that decision. I think that we have hired and worked with experts in this. I have my own opinion. I think I've been on record in saying that I'd like to see refuse pickup just once a week, and to change our services, not reduce, change how we do things. But I do that uneducated. It just sounds like the right idea. It seems like the right idea, but I'm not comfortable voting on something that I don't know enough about. And Mayor, I'd like to thank you and say that it's very important that we have a one agenda meeting for the trustees, for the village, for residents. I think this is a large issue, and that all of us need to get into the meat and potatoes and really understand it. And I would like not to have a time limit at just a board meeting. So I think this is an important decision and step for the village. And I also echo what you said regarding if we choose to take this direction, that the messaging is important, not only for outsiders, but of course for our village residents, and that they understand why we made this decision, and that we didn't make a decision in a tunnel, but with education and to understand how it impacts the environment. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Johnson.
If the majority of the board does not wish to vote on this at the next meeting, I will go along with the board. I will not make a motion or anything like that. But I would still very much like to recommend, I've heard from everyone tonight that the desire for education, the desire for information. I would still very much like to recommend these presentations from SEAC and Public Works that are separate from their prep and presentations for the sustainability as a whole. So SEAC spent a lot of time working on 4 specific waste management recommendations in a report that they prepared for February, but they haven't been able to report those specific waste management recommendations yet. And I think for the sake of education and information, I would still very much like to hear that before it just kind of gets rolled in to the sustainability plan conversation, which is much broader, much more comprehensive. And I think the Public Works study that they did on our refuse and recycling pickups, which show a lot of the clear inefficiencies with the second pickup. They did these studies last fall, and they presented to SEAC, but we haven't heard them present to the board yet. So if the board does not wish to vote on the second pickup until November, I will totally support that. But I would still very much like to recommend presentations from Public Works and SEAC. These issues, these presentations that they've made, they're kind of separate from the sustainability plan as a whole, if the board is willing.
Well, the intention of having 2 meetings turning off the clock would be to give SEAC the opportunity to talk about that along with village staff. Village staff will present on the second pickup, its data and its information. But it's important that we understand that during those meetings, why it's being done, the full context. We're going to wind up repeating ourselves. And when you start repeating yourselves, people stop paying attention. And I think Trustee Klein hits the mark. We need to take all of it up as a unit at one time and absorb it, and then we will vote on it all. So It's just a difference of timing, I think. I'm sorry.
Just real quick, I'm super excited to hear the report, and I just wanted to thank SEAC for all their work. I mean, they've been working on this for a
Done a
long,
tremendous job.
long time. So I just wanted to honor the work that they've done and honor the work that they're going to do regarding the education for not only the board but the community.
Can I ask, just to clarify about the specific motion, the motion was to curb discussion on this issue till November.
Until the reports are in,
Reports first.
are completed.
Would that, does that just mean board discussion, or would that mean also not hearing from Public Works and SEAC about their waste, about their kind of previous reports, like separate from the sustainability
I
report as a whole?
totally didn't follow that.
Oh, sorry. When you say curb discussion, I guess, do you mean board discussion? or
Have you seen the reports? I haven't.
I think Trustee Klein's talking about deferring the board discussion as well as the staff and SEAC reporting until we take up the entire report.
Okay. This will mean that SEAC's report on waste management recommendations from February, if we defer this, it will mean that they never present this to the village board as it is. It will be, we will get the sustainability plan, which this will be a part of. But they put a lot of time and energy into this report. If we defer this, we won't get that their specific waste management, their 4 points.
Why? Why
It's
won't
in
we?
the report. You just said that. It will be rolled into the report.
Yeah.
John?
So the direction that I've heard from the budget hearings, the second and third budget hearing in April, was that for the sustainability plan to be presented so that there's context, and then specifically the SEAC recommendations regarding refuse would then be presented as well. And so the recommendations from SEAC would be in the context of the entire sustainability plan. And so it's all being considered as a policy decision at once, although there's a number of decisions associated with that. And
Yeah.
so it's, my understanding has been the desire to have the SEAC recommendations presented to the board in the context of the sustainability plan.
I guess
The
I would-
next sustainability plan, I should say.
And I attended one of the SEAC meetings, and that is what I told them. Max, you were there. That is what I was asked the question. Will the board be voting on the second garbage pickup? And my answer was, yes, that's the pledge. The board will take up your recommendation as part of your report. And nobody disagreed with it. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry.
I guess if I understand, and I will support the direction of the council tonight. Whatever the council goes with, I'll go with. I guess, I heard a lot of people say, I think rightfully, that this is a really big decision, and that as much information as education as possible would be great. And so, for me, in the sake of education and information, I would still love to see those specific presentations at our next meeting if possible. That's
I know this has gone on for quite a while, but from close to the beginning of this discussion, I want to come clarify a few things, because there are a couple of terms that are being thrown around interchangeably, and they're not the same thing.
Okay.
So there's the report by Public Works, which is a broader version of the waste study they did last November, that they are just now, if, Mr. Slanker, please correct me if I'm not correct, but they're just now like finalizing that second better report. Is that right? And so there's the report by Public Works, but then
Yeah.
there's the sustainability plan.
Yeah,
And this
we
is like
understand.
one line item out of hundreds of line items in the sustainability plan. So.
It'll be more than that.
Right, more than hundreds,
No, that's,
yeah. I mean,
go on.
so I guess one question I have is, are you planning to go through the plan with a red pen and say, we'll do this one and not that one? Or you think that it's a package deal and we have to do all or none?
each member of the board will be given the opportunity to make their comments. We do not redline reports. That's not the village board's role. When we get the report, members of the board will have the opportunity to question staff, question SEAC, to get clarification, get embellishment, to get questions answered. As a policy, the question before the board will be to adopt the plan as presented with or without amendments. I don't know how members of the board are going to react. Under the council-manager form of government, this legislative body formulates policy. We do so, hopefully, with an abundance of information. I say hopefully. And that's what we're going to endeavor to do. We take this very seriously. Once the board has decided on the policy and we have adopted a sustainability policy, which will include, more than likely, I think, the substitution of the second pickup for an alternative, then the manager, the director of public works, and other staff takes the policy and initiates it and puts it into action. And then in the spring, the manager will make a report along with our public works director and associated staff on the status of where we are in implementing the plan. It probably is going to be a 5-year plan, so we will need to establish timelines for different aspects of it.
2030 and 2040 are the dates in the plans, like as written.
I understand.
Also, as far as I know, like in the groups that I'm in, there's very little overlap between SEAC and the team drafting the plan. So I would ask you to defer not only to members of SEAC who may not have the expertise in certain of the issues, but also to other members who have been very involved in drafting the plan. But
Thank you. So
Is there something you'd like me to respond to?
No, I mean, a question was raised, and
To, I think, respond very quickly to the question, Lauren, or statement, whatever it was that Lauren had. We did survey data on the waste system last fall and was presented to SEAC. We did additional survey data to take into account the collection system from this summer, and I believe that was reported to SEAC at either the June or the July meeting. So it was freshened and updated. So that's what we're referring to.
Can I ask one, sorry, I know we've been going on a while. Can I ask one final question? I know we're going to vote, so it sounds like mid-November, we're going to vote on adopting the new sustainability plan as a whole. At that meeting, can we also vote on this? Can we vote?
Oh,
No?
yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
this is actually one of the line items.
yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I mean, that's my,
I guess I was a little.
I'm
oh, yeah.
getting
But-
sick and tired of saying it because I'm beginning to bore myself. Our pledge is the village board is going to take a vote on twice a week garbage pickup.
Okay, great.
Can I be any more clear than
Sorry,
that?
I just wanted to clarify that if
I've said it repeatedly.
I just wanted to clarify if adopting the plan kind of meant adopting the specific thing, or if that was something separate. But I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It-
My bad.
So about that one issue, I think that the Public Works report about that they're gonna present next week, might bring up issue, or reasons to cut back to once a week that aren't necessarily addressed in the sustainability plan, and it has to do with the freeing up of the staff time. I remember Ms. Zimmerman bringing that up a couple of times. The other thing is, I really would love it if you guys, like, after you have a presentation, instead of just taking a vote that night, like, go home, think about it, talk about it, not vote until the next week. And
That's
if-
the purpose of having two meetings.
Okay.
The first meeting is to give SEAC the evening to present its report, and then we'll ask for public comments. After that, we will have a formal, regularly scheduled village board meeting at which the board will then take action, discussion and action. And if there's any additional public comment, we will take that at the same time.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
There's still a motion to be
Yes.
voted on.
Wait, after that, I have another comment, not about this.
oh, okay. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker.
I'm voting on trustee
Ralph.
Klein's motion. Aye.
Trustee Robinson.
Aye, that's the motion that's on the floor.
Trustee Kuhn.
Aye.
Trustee Johnson.
I'm a bit disappointed, but I'll vote aye with Kurt.
Trustee Pure Slovin.
Aye.
Trustee Klein.
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye.
Can I make a
Trustee
comment in a new,
Pearsall. Of course.
business? Thank you. I just want to put on record and thank anybody who was involved and all those who were involved in the Skokie Backlot Bash this year. It was a spectacular event for those of you who came. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I especially want to recognize our first responders, the Skokie Police and the Fire Department, who had to give up their time and day and go into overtime to ensure our safety in this crazy world that we live in. Your presence was greatly appreciated. And I think it was a feel-good for the neighbors because everybody was able to stop and spend a minute with our first responders and to see the caring side and the human side of those who wear the uniforms. So again, I want to thank those who organized, worked diligently, and I hope that all Skokie residents had a wonderful time. Thank you again for those who wear the uniform for keeping us safe. Thank you.
And who worked at the beer tent?
Wasn't me.
And I would also, in as much as Max is with us, I would like to thank Public Works for all of the work they did, and the Skokie Park District. The amount of planning that went into the Backlot Bash, it took a year to plan it, and it came off without a hitch, and I echo what Trustee Pure Slovin has said. It was a spectacular success, especially after 2 years of trying to figure out when are we going to be normal and when could we have a full-scale Backlot Bash. And they pulled it off, and I too, I want to join you in congratulating everybody for all of the work they put in, including you, Bob. Thank you. Public comment. I see a couple people here who I think want to comment.
I'm going to be giving public comments tonight as well from the public podium, and so I'm going to leave the dais for the evening and join the audience, but I will be listening to all the public comments from the audience. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Van Dusen and trustees. My name is Rabbi Ralph Rubner. You recently appointed me to the Human Relations Commission, and I thank you for that. I'm also a member of the board of the Skokie Community Foundation. I'm an attorney. I'm also a professor and academic dean emeritus at UIC Law School. Prior to this appointment, I was also a member of the Human Relations Commission for a period of 11 years. And among many of my responsibilities included to chair the Fair Housing Committee. And I recall that with the help of Corporation Counsel, we drafted an amendment to the Fair Housing Ordinance to protect prospective renters, and you approved that amendment unanimously. It dealt with source of income. My passion as a rabbi and as an attorney is for fairness. My wife and I, own a 3-bedroom condo in the Optima Maple building on the 11th floor, overlooking, unfortunately, the future Caravan Tower. But that's not the issue for tonight. We have a bigger problem in the Maple building and in the village of Skokie. I come to you with a bigger problem which is called condominium deconversion. And you probably have not heard of that, but we're about to experience the first of it in this village. It's basically an attempt by one entity to buy up the entire building and turn it 100% from condominiums to rental apartments. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is not fair. This morning I sent a legal memorandum to Mr. Lorge, sharing with him my understanding of where the law stands, and I'm asking the board to intervene on our behalf immediately. Just a little background, and please bear with me. Maple is the third and final building in the Optima complex and was completed as a condominium building with 277 units in 2008. And you will recall that was an unfortunate year when we had a real estate crash, also here in Skokie. The developer had sold 106 units to private buyers, but the remaining units remained open, vacant. An outfit by the name of Trilogy came in and bought 171 units and has recently purchased 3 more, all for the purpose of making it rental property. They now sent a letter to the rest of us that Trilogy intends to purchase 100% of the building for itself, excuse me, or for an affiliated entity in order to make this, to deconvert the building as, quote, luxury rental property. You may be aware that there has been a major shift in the real estate market in the Chicago area. Real estate developers, including Trilogy, have acknowledged that deconversion is very profitable, and because of this deconversion, rental prices generally have increased dramatically in the city of Chicago in a matter of a few years, making rental property there unaffordable to most individuals. And it's coming here. The Maple building has among its individual owners retirees, elderly individuals, persons with disabilities, including my wife, and individuals on fixed income. The deconversion process will force some owners to relocate within or outside Skokie or pay rent to Trilogy beyond their financial means. They're talking about luxury apartments. Let me explain what is going on with luxury apartments in terms of rental here in Skokie. The most recent listings for a 2-bedroom unit with 2 bathrooms in High Point at $8,000, listed at $2,711 per month, and a 3-bedroom comparable to what I have would be $4,837. The people in Maple who are the current owners could not find replacement at that level. Skokie is a diverse social and economic community. Our rental scheme in this village is both diverse in price and generally it is affordable. However, the village needs to act now to slow down the deconversion stampede at Maple and what is likely to follow with other condominium buildings in Skokie, as was the fact in the city of Chicago. The conversion process will most likely have a ripple effect on the general rental market in Skokie, as is the case in Chicago, and thus Skokie will become unaffordable for many potential renters. I know that you're concerned about that. This cannot and should not happen here. So tonight, I ask the board first for a moratorium on deconversion in Skokie until the village board conducts a study to determine what effect deconversion will have on the affordability of rental property in Skokie to a diverse social and economic population. Secondly, alternatively, or in addition, I urge the village board to raise the approval rate under the current statutory scheme of the Illinois statute on condominium. That is 75% approval rate by ownership. We ask you to raise it to 85%, and that would be consistent with what the City Council for the City of Chicago has done. I've submitted a legal argument to legal counsel to show that under Home Rule Authority, you have the power, the authority to do this. I respectfully submit that to you, and I ask for your consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, village trustees, village residents. My name is Andrew Tinkler. I'm a unit owner in the Optima Old Orchard Woods Maple Building. I'm here this evening to express direct support for Rabbi Rubner's memo to Village Council and to support his comments this evening. I'm asking the board and Councilor Lorge to take action in order to stifle the Trilogy Real Estate Company's hostile takeover of the Optima Maple Tower, which would likely displace countless seniors, children, and infirmed residents. There are numerous other Optima unit owners present this evening that are wary of Trilogy's attempts at a hostile takeover. I was hoping any Optima owners would please raise their hand at this time. And that's all that I have. Thank you, board.
Thank you. I did not ever even hear of this until late Saturday evening when I got an email from a resident at Optima. I don't know if we can legally, even using our home rule powers, adopt a moratorium on a single building. I don't know if we can do that. And I believe the city of Chicago is the only municipality in the state of Illinois that has adopted the 85% threshold. And I don't believe, like I say, I'm new to this, but I don't believe that's been tested in the courts, whether you can supersede what the state does. However, I think Rabbi Rubner's and Mr. Tinkler's arguments are something that we do need to take seriously. Hopefully, it doesn't pretend otherwise. My understanding is that one of our neighbors did take up this question and decided not to act. I would like to consult with them, and I would like to ask the legal staff and our manager to take a look at the situation. Rabbi, you've been in touch with Mr. Lord.
I have, thank you.
So if you don't mind, we will appoint you the representative. Is that a general agreement with those of you who are here from Optima? Just make it a little easier. Yes, sir. Okay, so Rabbi, you've just picked up another job. Stay in touch. Let us do our research. Yes, sir.
People still got to get up and speak on this issue?
If you like, sure.
My name is Eric Inbody, and I'm a Optima owner too.
What is the last name?
Inbody, I-N-B-O-D-Y.
Thank you.
I've been an owner here in Skokie for 12 years.
Thank you.
And I guess you're getting all this information, so there's a bunch of stuff I don't need to tell you. Optima, Old Orchard Woods was a great project. First tower sold out, second tower sold out, and if the financial crisis of 2007 had waited 4 months, maybe 6, we'd all be fine. But now, out of 266 people, 100 and some of us are about to lose our home. Unwillingly lose our home. Legally lose our home. And Optima has bought up, I think, 166 units. So they're very close already. They need to just find a handful of people that are desperate to sell their home, and the rest of us are going to start from scratch. I'm retired, so I'm on a fixed income. I worked making money for other people my whole life, and if they take my home and they take, let's say, $100,000 worth of equity, and I start paying a much higher nut on my monthly fee, I'll probably have to go back to work for Trilogy to get them their money. It's legal. It's a smart business model, but it is a hostile takeover. It's happening all so fast. All of us are going through shock and anger, disbelief. We're trying to figure out what to do. We barely have time to talk amongst ourselves. You are going to get a bunch of information. So now that I've just heard this, I'll leave it. I know some information is hitting you. I'm hoping that you could reach or get a small forum or quorum together with your lawyer. We've got a lawyer. You can do your own research. It's called Section 15 of the Illinois Condominium Code. And it is called Deconversion. You'll see a lot, if you use your Google machine, you'll see a lot real quickly. But we're all in shock. We can't believe it's happening. Anything we can do to help, but there's a lot of us that are beyond furious, and a lot of us that are feeling quite hopeless. We don't think it's over. We think we can fight to the finish line. We think it's possible. No, I don't know what I can ask you to do. I know we probably have a representative that needs to hear about this too. It's possible that we win the vote. I don't think they would have gone forward unless they knew they were going to get their vote in their favor. They're worth billions of dollars. I hate the thought of going back to work for them to continue living in my home.
To clarify, did you say you've retained counsel, or the group has retained the counsel?
Our board has one person working for us, and they've hired a good lawyer that knows this Section 15 that you're about to learn about. The other two other board members, because Trilogy owns 166 spots, I want to guess. That means they have the other 2 board spots, and by Illinois law, they're supposed to be fiduciaries for all of us, do the proper thing, but we've not noticed that since they've bought in. And you'll see them under TREG, Trilogy Real Estate Group. They're a Trilogy LLC. They're kind of complicated, but that allows them to secretly, behind our back, buy units. And we just don't know where we stand. My only thing to say tonight, sorry to be so long-winded, they're acting very quickly, and they're smart to do that because we're not prepared to defend ourselves. And so we want to come to you quickly, and I ask you to whatever quorum you need, and the lawyer we'll talk to you. I'll talk to anybody. We'll all meet with you. Our lawyer's worth talking to. We'll go to the finish line to fight. We don't know what's going to happen. But like I said, we're all just beyond outraged.
Okay, give us an opportunity. We're educating ourselves. And Rabbi Rubner, have your attorney get in touch with us as well. And I don't know what our alternatives are.
Completely understand.
So
that's why we're feeling so helpless.
But
But we
let us-
think we
let
think we
us
can
take
fight it
a
off.
look.
Anything, we'll be in contact with you. I
Okay.
know we've already started. You've got the documents. Do your own work. My point simply being, unfortunately, I see how busy you guys are now. Time is of the essence.
I'll figure out a time tomorrow to meet with you.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brianna with the Central Park Neighbors. We spoke with everybody about a month ago at our village trustee meeting. We were very appreciative for everyone's time and thoughtfulness. Before I say anything else, I'd like to say that the village has been responsive, has responded to emails, and for that we are greatly appreciative. I'm going to try to do something techie, and I'm not very good at that, so. Can that be heard? That's my backyard on Thursday. So I'll shout over it like I had to try to tuck in my kids during this going on. So last Thursday, September 1st, there was an event in the parking lot that was adjacent to us while I was trying to tuck in my 4-year-old, and that didn't work out so well, as you can all imagine. We just got completed 8 weeks of noise like that coming from the parking lot next to us. Unfortunately, this was also a tuck-in, and it continues. We are working on trying to recuperate from the summer of the stress that next to us caused in our lives, the disruption. In this case, trying to get a 4-year-old to sleep with Katy Perry blasting isn't the easiest thing in the world. I emailed the director for the parish next to us. I included videos that were heard from my backyard, including those that friends of mine in the neighborhood had sent to me because they couldn't believe the noise that they were hearing. One of those videos was from 2 blocks over on Drake. One of those videos was from the corner of Central Park and Church, and the music is equally blasting at their houses as well. The comments were, "What is going on? How is it that loud? And I am so sorry you're going through this." When I emailed the director, I included those videos, and the reply would be that we should continue working with the village, which is why we're here today. There was no encouragement from the parish that they would work with us, instead that we should just come to you, which is why we're asking again for your help. We acknowledge that all the conversations are going, that there's an interdisciplinary group. We just thought it'd be very important that you're aware of how loud this is and that it is still ongoing. In that email reply from them, they said they were having another event on September 23rd. There was no mention in the email from them about considering lowering the music. This situation cannot continue in its current state. These invasions of privacy are too frequent and too obnoxious. Our privacy, peace of mind, quality of life, and comfort of our homes and yards has become subjective to whatever event in the St. Joan of Arc parking lot is granted an amplifier or special event permit by the Village of Skokie. The village has kindly shared that there is an interdisciplinary committee working on the quality of life concerns, and that this work includes amplifier permits, noise ordinance, and camp regulations. We are extremely grateful for all this work. We know it is time-consuming. We know there's a lot going on in this village. We've heard of some of the amazing work tonight and the amazing work to come. That being said, in representing the Central Park neighborhood, we would be most interested in working with the village as part of this work moving forward. The village has asked that a couple of Central Park neighbors participate in discussions with the village and Camp Apache regarding the last 3 days of camp this past summer. While we are happy to partake in these conversations, our eyes are truly to the future and preventing our neighborhood, our block, our lives from being subjected to the next St. Joan of Arc parking lot related disruption. We have 4 questions for the Skokie Village trustees. First, we would appreciate the sharing of a timeline, a project management timeline, for the interdisciplinary committee's work on the amplifier and camp regulations to include an expected completion date. This would help us know where the progress is going, so we have some idea of what to expect and what the timeline is. Second, we wonder if we can be invited to participate in this interdisciplinary group. From knocking on doors and speaking to many of our neighbors, we are able to offer firsthand insights into the impact these quality of life issues have had collectively on our neighborhood as well as individually on individual residents. Third, we are wondering what is taken into consideration when processing an amplifier permit. We are wondering if this includes a history of prior noise complaints against that property, as we have had to call the police and interact with the village many times about this property, and they just had another noise event, amplifier event last Thursday. And fourth, we wonder why this property continues to be granted amplifier permits, given the known 8 straight weeks of disruption we have endured as Central Park neighbors. Please grant us a respite from this noise pending the improvements to quality of life that the interdisciplinary committee is working on. Again, I truly deeply appreciate your time and energy. I understand how busy everybody is, but the impact on our lives is just disruptive, and not knowing when it will end is disturbing. Per the email from this property, their next outdoor event is a movie night in just 2 weeks. We ask for your help.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Hong Wu, last name W-U. I also live on Central Park Avenue. I was here last time for the meeting as well. We talked about our firsthand experience with the camp, which lasted for 2 months. And in the middle, during the camp, I called so many people from the city, including mayor's office. And I left a message, and finally we got the tent moved from probably next to my fence to the middle of the parking lot. That was like such a huge help. Anyways, so my life is like every day we're waiting for the boot to drop. We don't know. Like today, another boot. Tomorrow, another boot. We don't know. So this is how I experience living in my own house. Thursday, September 1st, I was having a conversation at 7 o'clock after dinner. I was having a conversation with my high school daughter. We were experiencing something, and then we were trying to have a peaceful conversation about what's happened in school, and then this music started blasting. Windows were all shut, and the bass was like invasive. I use the word invasive because that was invasive. In my own house, I had nowhere to go. So I opened the door at the window, and then the music just like hit me into the heart. So I videotaped I'm not going to play the video here, so Brianna, just play the video. We had nowhere to go. So I waited until 7:48-ish. The music just won't stop, and the DJ was shouting into my ears and my heart. So I had to call police, and police officers came. I showed him to the backyard. I asked him, like, is it necessary for a party like this to run such a loud music, which could be heard from 2 blocks away? So here, I ask you to help us. We need peace. We all work during daytime, and nighttime is our time we want to rest. And our kids need to do homework. Our kids need to go to bed. We set the bedtime 8:30. There was no way for them. They were so pumped up at 8 o'clock. There is no way for them to sit down and do homework. So we desperately need your help. And I don't know what boot will drop tomorrow. Thank you.
I'm Frances Aparicio. I'm also from Central Park, and I just want to support Hong's and Brianna's request for the village of Skokie to do something about the use of amplifiers. It really is a total invasion of our everyday lives. And even though we're a little bit farther down the block, we could still hear the music on Thursday night. So it's not just Camp Apache, it's now St. Joan of Arc School too. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I believe a couple of you are designated as representing the area with John. Right.
So our question was, you know, we've been told an email that would be in conversations with Camp Apache related to the last 3 days of camp, when music spoken with so many of our neighbors, having gotten 65 signatures on a letter requesting that there be these changes to amplifier and camp regulations. We are asking, would it be possible to be part of that interdisciplinary group? We have firsthand experience with this situation. We've spoken with our neighbors.
That's the purpose of having you as the representatives. You will be part of the discussions.
To clarify, are the discussions with Camp Apache separate from the interdisciplinary group in scope
No,
that's working on regulations moving forward?
No, John.
We're trying to work to resolve the issue. Part of that long-term issue is that we were under the understanding that we had set the volume at an acceptable level on Wednesday morning, 8 a.m., after you were here and spoke Monday night of that last week of camp. And so there was consistent volume control of the amplifier. There were 2 amplifiers that were you all have alluded in your most recent email that there's inconsistency. And so that is what we came to realize as we were problem solving during the camp this summer, that when we were out and we set the level of the music, then it would change. But part of the reason for that, many-fold, but one reason is that there were 2 different amplifiers being used, one in the AM, one in the PM. And so on that Wednesday of the last week of camp, we set at 8 a.m. a level and only 1 amplifier to be used, AM and PM, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But in a recent communication from you, I understood that the level was not acceptable as the week went on. And so as we are trying to set policy going forward, it's crucial that we understand what happened Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in order to prevent that from happening again. And so we are looking to work with you and to resolve the issues, but we need you to work with us. I sent you an email about end of the day on Friday, asking with specific dates for your availability to meet. And I haven't heard back from you yet. But we want to work with you, and we look forward to resolving the issues. I appreciate the feedback tonight. I wasn't aware of the volume last week, and so I do appreciate the feedback, and we look forward to working with you arm in arm to get this resolved.
So our question is related to the amplifier and number of camp attendees and max capacity for camps that were included in the letter. Are these separate interdisciplinary group within Skokie government working on these, or is this Skokie government working with camp on this as well, just to clarify so we understand more?
This is internal homework that we have been doing, research that we've been doing. We've spoken to the Park District, we've spoken to other municipalities. We did a survey of 65 municipalities in order to better understand what the best practices are. But I can, one of the disappointments that we had is that the ratio of how many campers are allowed at a camp from our park district is based solely on the ratio of campers to counselors. And so that's not going to help us in your situation. And so you requested a timeline this evening, and it's hard for us to set an artificial timeline when we do not have a solution yet. We're working diligently to find that solution, but we don't yet have a solution that addresses all the quality of life issues that we've been discussing.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that you've been working, and checking out with the different organizations. When I spoke with the Skokie Parks and Rec, they did say that part of their consideration was not just camper to staffer ratio, that it was impact on traffic and impact on the neighborhood and impact for the space itself. Did they feel like there was appropriate amount of campers for that space?
So you may have spoken to someone differently than who our person spoke with, so I would be interested in that person's name, if you could share that with me. That would be great.
Thank you.
And also, I have a question. So, regarding as a representative from the block, so you mentioned that you want to have a meeting with us. So, I want to see my role in that meeting. Am I working with the city to provide first-hand information, or because my understanding is that I'm a Skokie resident, and the Skokie government represents my interests to work with whatever and to establish a good, livable, with quality environment. So that is my understanding, and I'm happy to be the representative to represent the block, the community, but also I'm a little unclear about what my role is. So
I think it'd be helpful. I think it'd be helpful for us to have a conversation outside of this meeting, because we're getting into a lot of detail, which I'm happy to discuss, but I think it would be best for us to have a conversation outside of this room.
I just want to make myself clear that I do.
You've communicated.
I'm able to work. I want to provide my first-hand information, but on the other side, I'm expecting the city to represent my best interest.
We're hoping that Skokie is representing its residents as a priority, and help and working to set rules and regulations that are for the better of its residents that have been complaining, instead of over the priorities of a camp, which we think would be a conflict of interest for the camps to have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Good evening, everyone. Since it's public comments, I'll say my name is James Johnson. I live on Hull Street in downtown Skokie. And I also wanted to say just up front that I'm speaking for myself tonight. I'm not speaking on behalf of any group, including the village board. Just speaking for myself as a resident. I've been wanting to make these comments for a few meetings, and there's a part of me today that was kind of afraid if I didn't make them tonight that I might not make them at all. So I'm gonna, but my comments tonight are sincere. They're in good faith. I want to formally respond to what happened in June when the mayor, by surprise, proposed and then withdrew some advisory referendum questions for the November ballot. And more importantly, I want to offer some specific recommendations to the board on how personally I think the board could move forward in a really meaningful and productive way. To recap, 5 meetings ago at the June 20th village board meeting, our mayor, with the assistance of our village corporation counsel's office, proposed that the village board indirectly block a resident referendum campaign from access to the ballot. And from my perspective, this was a case of representative democracy kind of attempting to interfere with direct democracy. And we had numerous public comments that evening that even referred to this as an attempt at voter suppression, which is a very serious charge. There was a 100-person rally outside of Village Hall that night that featured numerous public officials, that even featured a former Illinois governor. It's been over 2 months. I have not really seen a meaningful response from the board. And I know this is a very personal statement, but I've been greatly saddened that I have not heard other members of the board publicly acknowledge that what happened was wrong. So in response, I want to make 2 very sincere recommendations to the board. In acknowledgement that what happened in June was very serious, and even, to use a strong word, even anti-democratic. First, I think awareness is really important. I think historical perspective is incredibly important. And so I want to encourage every member of the board to look into the history of how the Skokie Village Board has responded to resident referendum movements historically in the past. Our village board does a number of things well. We do many things well. We have an incredible history in a lot of areas. But in this area, we have a very sad and very regrettable history. To my knowledge, the village board has always, historically, in the past, been opposed and even resisted every single attempt by Skokie residents to participate in direct democracy through referendums. In 1957, the village board was even vehemently opposed to the council manager form of government referendum that brought us a village manager and helped update our democracy for the 20th century. It's something we celebrate to this day. The worst historical moment is in 1958. It's a part of Skokie history that not a lot of people know about. In 1958, the village board actually committed an overt act of voter suppression. Residents turned in a petition for a city referendum that almost turned the village board into a city council. And the village board, with the assistance of the Corporation Counsel's office, attempt to block it from the ballot by making up a fake requirement about the petition. It became a legal case that went all the way to the Illinois State Supreme Court, which ruled in favor of Skokie residents and against the board, and really affirmed the right, the constitutional right of every Skokie resident of Skokie residents as a whole to change their corporate structure whenever they see fit and participate in direct democracy. I want to encourage all of you to look into this history. I think it's really important, and I would love nothing more than to see this board respond to residents engaging in direct democracy in a more welcoming way and chart a better path than I think Skokie Village boards have historically in the past. And second, my second recommendation is less about awareness and is more about action. I want to again ask the village board to consider systemic changes in our Corporation Counsel's office to ensure that our village legal department is truly nonpartisan and is always acting in accordance with the philosophy of a council-manager form of government, so that the politics of the board always remain separate from the actual administration and management of our government. It's so important. What happened in June was anti-democratic, and sadly, it may not have been possible without direct assistance from village staff members in our Corporation Counsel's office. Systemic change, I think, is needed. And as all of you are very aware, what happened in June is not even the first time that current members of our Corporation Counsel's office have interfered in the democratic process on behalf of the village. On multiple occasions in the past few years, some of our village attorneys have even offered village commission appointments to Skokie residents with the intent to try to dissuade them from running for office and participating in the democratic process. As you're all aware, this happened to me when I was an independent candidate for village office. And I wish I could say that my experience was unique, but I know that I'm not alone. Already twice this term, very regrettably, I have had to file ethics complaints with our village ethics commission. 3 minutes is up. I'll wrap it up then. I'm saying all of this because I'm a huge believer that conflict avoidance very rarely leads to conflict resolution. And so with all due respect, I believe the time for systemic change is now in our Corporation Counsel's office. And if this change will not come at the behest of the mayor's office, I want to ask the trustees to speak up. Those are my 2 recommendations. I encourage you all to look into how the Skokie Village Board has opposed and even resisted resident-led direct democracy movements in the past, even to the point of attempting voter suppression. And I want to encourage all of you to support systemic changes in our Corporation Counsel's office to ensure that every department in our village government, not just the departments under our village manager, but every department in our village government is truly nonpartisan and is acting in conformity with the council manager form of government. I've already spoken too much. My 3 minutes is definitely up. I'm going to leave you, if I can say one more thing, I'm going to leave you with a quote that I love. I think about it often these days. It's one of my favorite quotes about democracy. It's very short. I'm sure many of you have heard it. It's usually attributed to the great Chicago activist Jane Addams. The cure for the ills of democracy is more democracy. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration. I appreciate it greatly. Thank you.
Last time I stopped here, and I was saying that with our current carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, right now we are racking up 0.6 watts for every square meter on the surface of the earth, and that is during the day and during the night, because this is an average over the entire surface of the earth. Even if we turn off the gas today, the world would continue to warm up. The carbon dioxide is already in the atmosphere, and we are not at a temperature equilibrium where the energy coming in is equal to the energy going out. The energy going out is still less than what's coming in. It takes about 1,000 years for the majority of the carbon dioxide to work its way out of the atmosphere and into the oceans. But warmer water doesn't hold as much CO2 as colder water. And if you think about whether your soda is fizzy or not, well, how warm is it, right? If it's warm, it's going to be flat because that warmer water can't hold the carbon dioxide that's been dissolved in it. So actually, this time frame will get longer as the world warms and the oceans warm, and more of the CO2 comes out of the oceans that's already in it. It takes another 1,000,000 years for the rest of the extra CO2 that we have put into the atmosphere to be absorbed into the rocks. This is part of the natural carbon cycle. During that time, Earth will have warmed way past the 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels that the International Panel on Climate Change has recommended. So here, this is what's called a toy model. I don't know how that works. If you want to reproduce these results, you can go to this website and put in the parameters I have here, where the CO2 spike is 800 gigatons of carbon. So that's like a total of 800 gigatons of carbon that had been put into the air. And what you can see in this plot is the spike, the blue line on the top plot is the carbon dioxide concentration, and the blue line on the bottom plot is the temperature. And that e to the 0 just means times 1, basically. So it will have warmed about 2.5 degrees, but it will have taken about 20 years to do so, even though the spike took less than 1 year. Then if we zoom out to 1,000 years, you see that the temperature is still over 2 degrees. And the CO2 concentration is still not where it started off. And now we're zooming out to 10,000 years. And the temperature is still, okay, it's dropped below 1 degree, but that's 10,000 years. And we're already at 1.1 degree above the pre-industrial levels. So we're already very on the track to get to 1.5 degrees. The whole point of this, here's out to 1,000,000 degrees. You see it takes about 1,000,000 degrees for the temperature to come back to normal. We have we have this technology that can help take carbon dioxide out of the air. It's actually hundreds of millions of years old. And not only does this technology take carbon dioxide out of the air, it also mitigates the urban heat island effect. I'll come back to that. The longer we wait to turn off the gas, the more CO2 there will be in the air when we finally do it. So not only will we have to stop burning fossil fuels now, we have to use that hundreds of millions of year old technology to get carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, because otherwise it's just going to keep warming up. And this number here will be even higher when we finally turn off the gas. So how much is Skokie emitting? This is actually from the greenhouse gas emissions study that Pale Blue Dot did. Most of the emissions in Skokie are coming from stationary sources, and you should interpret that as buildings. So one huge thing we can do is to reduce this is to reduce the increase the insulation. So then you don't have to burn as much for heat. You don't have to generate as much in terms of emissions for air conditioning. So insulating is really, really good. And actually there's a way that you can retrofit buildings by putting a third layer of glazing on the windows, because windows are effectively just a hole in the wall. But I'll come back to that another week. So how much will it cost? That's the wrong question. The question is really, how much will it cost not to do it? Because the longer we wait, the harder it will be. More and more damage will have happened. You'll have to divert more and more funding to deal with climate change, but it also affects people, right? First of all, we've got heavy rain. More rain will fall in heavier bursts. This is because warmer air can hold more moisture, and so when that moisture finally condenses back into liquid and falls, it's all in one big burst. The ground can't absorb it very well, and we get a lot of stormwater runoff, as we're already experiencing. So you've got increased stormwater volume and more flooding, which ends up costing the residents money. More frequent extreme heat causes all kinds of problems. People are less likely to want to walk around outside and shop. That decreases our tax revenue. People are less likely to want to go anywhere to shop, right? When it's like 95 degrees, I don't want to even take my car out because none of our parking lots are covered, and my car is going to be 120 degrees when I finally get back in it. But actually, the sustainability plan has solutions to that, so please take that seriously in November. As it gets warmer and warmer outside, it's going to cost more and more to cool your house. This is because of Newton's law of cooling, which I can go into another time if you want. And people are just going to have less money to spend on other things when they're spending all of this extra money on heating. And also, higher heat tends to be more associated with more cardiac events. I see people are kind of laughing, and I can't tell why.
No, I'm saying you're at 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, but
Told our colleague, or, excuse me, the other resident that he had 3 minutes. I think we have to say the same comment.
okay. Right, but as I was saying, so, okay, fine. I can pick up here next time. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to address the board? If not, Trustee Sucker.
I move we adjourn for executive